This video is sponsored by Crunchyroll, where you can both watch To Your Eternity and read the original manga, links to both in the doobly-doo. Now, with that legally required disclaimer out of the way, plus a warning of general spoilers incoming up to the end of the first arc, please pretend like this video started with a cool, atmospheric cold open. It learns and it remembers. That's how I'd describe the protagonist of To Your Eternity, if you'd asked. It is a perfect, featureless immortal sphere that can transform into a perfect copy of any object or dead life form that leaves a strong enough impression on it. It was cast down to Earth one day by some capricious deity so that it could do that, and he can watch. And thankfully, we get to watch too, in one of the best anime in the best season of anime in what might be the best year for anime ever. From a viewer's standpoint, the animators are kinda going through Hiffle to make all of it. But at least in the case of this hotly anticipated adaptation of the second big-ticket creation of a silent voice mangaka, Yoshitoki Oyama, that labor is bearing forth some delectable-looking fruit. Directed by Masahiko Murata, maestro of the most my favoritist sports anime ever made, Baby Steps, with music by Fate Go anime composer Ryo Kawasaki, and if that's not JRPG enough for you, an opening theme song by Hikaru Kingdom Hearts Utada, this anime is very, very good in pretty much every way you'd hope an anime would be. Its limited animation segments are tightly paced and strong in their cinematic storytelling, the same directing strength that made Baby Steps so good despite the clear limitations of its production. And on top of that strong foundation, it dollops generous portions of Sakuga in action scenes, comedic moments, and most importantly, all the bits where all the bits fly off our immortal, but very much not invincible lead. And then fly back onto it, magically sewing the wound back together like nothing ever happened. Baccano is another one of my favorite anime ever. As longest-time viewers of this channel will know, it was the subject of the first ever Mother's Basement video, followed by Baby Steps, funny enough, but that's not the connection I'm making here today. See, both Baccano and To Your Eternity are rare examples of graphic cartoon violence, another one of my favorite things, involving immortals, and specifically animated at Studio Brainspace. It's always fun watching Lad Russo laughing a lot and slaughtering a lot, as he's wont to do, but the real Sakuga magic in Baccano happens when he leaves the room and the crime scene he left behind cleans itself back up and packs itself away under the newly reformed skull and newsboy cap of the boy he thought he just capped. This is a very specific kind of animation that I just can't get enough of. And that blows because Baccano is the only thing I've seen it in, and there are only 16 episodes of that. But now we're getting at least 20 episodes of this, plus all these gorgeous transformation animations. The Sakuga goblin that lives in my noggin is very, very happy with this show. It is every bit as beautiful as the masterpiece of a manga on which it's based. Thankfully, that descriptor also applies to how it tells its story, which pulls off another rare sort of artistic feat that I personally happen to be a sucker for. To Your Eternity doesn't just use its fantastical premise to show us Sakuga-infused supernatural sights and fights. It asks us to view them and the mostly natural world around them through the eyes of something utterly inhuman, putting us in the shoes and mind of something that can look like us, but doesn't think like us at all. A truly alien intelligence. At the story's outset, it doesn't have a personality, motivations, or anything else that typically defines a character, particularly a protagonist. It learns and it remembers, changing from blank slate or blank marble to rock to dead dog owner a couple very sad weeks of trekking across barren tundra later, and then, after crawling its way out of that hopeless situation and dying 6 times in the process, it gets yeeted off a cliff by a big angry polar bear with a back full of arrows. Life do be like that sometimes, but nothing gets the immortal down. It doesn't know how to be down. It only knows how to learn and remember. Eventually, someone teaches it how to eat and calls it Fushi, derived from Fuji or immortal, which is, yes, very on the nose, but to be fair, the someone who named it, March, is literally a child. And she doesn't have that much time to think about the name on account of how she's being chased by the army of a far-off Iron Age empire that demands ritual sacrifices from its less fancily smelting vassal tribes. Even from our extremely limited beginning viewpoint, it's clear as day that this is a vast world we've been dropped into, comprised of many different rich and clashing cultures. The first two we encounter, Yanome and Ninana, are as alien to us as they are to Fushi, though we can at least infer some things about them and the people there through our knowledge of history and basic understanding of how a human sacrificey situation like this would feel if it happened to us. And we share this naive yet relatively informed view of these events and the world they're happening in with the first arc's co-protagonist, March herself, who is violently aware of how unfair her new lot in life is, but also hasn't lived enough of life to give up hope entirely when she probably should. Her story is a short and bitter tragedy, made all the more painful by how sweet and innocent its heroine is. March is at that age where her sole ambition in life is to be a grown-up, more specifically, a mommy. Which is something she does get to experience, however briefly, with Fushi, as she teaches him the bare essentials of life, food and gratitude, before hers runs out far too soon, and he and we are left only with the memories. Now, to be clear, only the specifics of her fate or any other characters are spoilers. Untimely death is the sad inevitability faced by everyone who befriends the undying thing, though it comes to some far too sooner than others. In times, Fushi will learn to grieve each of these losses, but before that, it remembers them, right up to their final moments, which it can replicate perfectly, right down to the wounds that killed them. March is an agonizingly human character, and her point of view gives her part of the story the emotional weight and context we need to become invested in the greater picture. Because again, Fushi, the character whose point of view we'll be sharing for the entire span of geological history this story covers, is very, very not human. Though in time, it will learn to pretend well enough for us to relate to its eternally mounting grief. The naive and short-sighted think of immortality as a blessing. Once you've lived enough, though, you understand that unless you share it with literally everyone, it's an incomprehensible curse. A life with no lasting companions, no fixed purpose, and no end in sight. This isn't the first story to explore this theme by a long shot. The Xbox 360 exclusive Sakaguchi masterpiece Lost Odyssey covers 1,000 years worth of it in some of the most beautiful writing you'll ever read in a video game, but To Your Eternity still stands apart by letting us follow its immortal lead through each excruciating loss from the very beginning of its overlong life. In that beginning, we have zero frame of reference for connecting to or understanding Fushi. It's a boy that was a dog, that was moss, that was a rock, that was a ball, that was nothing. It has no parents, no friends or relations or earthly attachments of any kind. No context for what it's experiencing, save for the handful of things we've already seen it experience. We may cry when the boy dies, but it doesn't, because it doesn't know how. Though it doesn't take a psychic to predict that it will one day. Because, thanks to the series' remarkable writing, we are able to grasp how Fushi thinks, how it learns and remembers, how its thirst for more raw information drives it until it knows enough about the world to actually care about the stories happening to it and work toward more complex goals. First, it grasps food and gratitude, then manners, then pain. With help, it learns language to better understand and express what it's learning and remembering. And by the way, the scene where Grandma teaches him Japanese makes for excellent beginner-level practice, if anyone's in need of some. We're 8 episodes in now, and Fushi is very much still learning to be human, but he's getting there, and if you were paying attention, the anime helps you understand perfectly how he got there. One shortcut the series takes to make this happen is connecting his development to human stages of childhood through the other protagonists whose perspectives we briefly share. March is but a wee babby, while Gugu, still gregarious and curious, is somewhat older and wiser when we meet him, but still very much a kid. As they both relate to Fushi in his various stages of growth, it helps those of us who also had childhoods do the same and remember a bit of the learning process he's going through. But Fushi is still very much learning to be human, and there is that truly alien, raw information processing process uninfluenced by instinct at the core of his consciousness, driving his decisions. Strong character acting in the animation helps to convey that, and once he starts talking, equally strong voice acting on the part of his seiyuu, Reiji Kawamashi, adds to the inhuman effect. The way he talks kind of reminds me of Migi from Parasite. But we still need some context for even that much to make sense, lest we end up with another Balan Wonderworld. To Your Eternity is the rare piece of visual media that I think would be utterly incomprehensible without its narrator. A statement that I expect will be weirdly contentious. Some anime fans, dumb anime fans in my opinion, have knocked the series for having a narrator at all. It's one of those things that people who don't actually write but know some of the rules of writing see as an automatic sign that someone's doing it wrong. But like all the tools in a writer's kit, even the most ruggedly overworn ones, it does have a purpose. There are narrative functions that only a narrator can serve. If you read or listen to audiobooks, you already know this all too well. I'm reminded of a framing device used in Cibola Burn, Book 4 of the Expanse saga, on which the Amazon Prime TV show of the same name is based. It's basically Gundam without the robots if you haven't seen it already, but even if you have, I'd still recommend reading it, because while the novels may not have the show's fancy high-budget set design, they do offer a much deeper look into the characters' psyches. Normally, I'd say into their heads because it's a cleaner turn of phrase, but the particular character who thinks the passage I'm about to quote, from infrequent interludes between the chapters proper, doesn't have a head, or body, or thoughts of its own for that matter. Though it does contain them. See, it's a self-reproducing molecular computer that incorporates organic life into its operational structures in order to... All I want to highlight here is how its thought processes, or programming patterns, translate into prose. It reaches out, it reaches out, it reaches out, it reaches out. 113 times a second, nothing answers, and it reaches out. It is not conscious, though parts of it are. There are structures within it that were once separate organisms, aboriginal, evolved, and complex. It is designed to improvise, to use what is there and then move on. Good enough is good enough, and so the artifacts are ignored or adapted. The conscious parts try to make sense of the reaching out, try to interpret it, and it reaches out. I have thought about those sections almost every day since I first heard them. When the concept was first introduced, it seemed almost impossible to wrap my human mind around the idea of an inorganic computer wrapping itself around a human mind. Yet, through those carefully chosen words that think and emote within the boundaries of rigid, mechanical, repetitive mental processes, I feel like I'm able to comprehend how this thing works. If language is the source code of the mind, then narration allows us to inspect any element of any character that it touches upon. Though, I suppose in To Your Eternity's case, it's more like reading comments as we watch the code execute, since the narration comes courtesy of Fushi's as-yet unnamed creator, and as such, offers insights into how both of them look at the world. Now, I won't deny that narration is the writer's equivalent of a power tool, that it can very easily be or overused to the point it does way more damage than it fixes, but given how vast the gap in general understanding is between us monkey meat sacks and undying mimic balls made by absentee deities, not to mention the gods themselves, We need the help in bridging it, I think. To Your Eternity understands the power it's wielding, though, how easily it can render redundant any attempt at visual storytelling, and as such uses its narrator sparingly, only when no dialogue will suffice, and only to represent that one powerful voice. All these tools combine to give us a fascinating, unique perspective on a fascinating, unique story that seeks to impart a different kind of perspective. A true sense of the scale of a world building up from a single rock, and the true meaning of eternity. What this series is attempting is already audacious and ambitious enough without literally alienating its audience from their main traveling companion at the long journey's outset. Yet that very audacity and the empathetic aplomb with which Yoshi tax fraud Oima pulls it off ensures that these first steps will be as strikingly memorable as the journey's hard-earned last, when it eventually reaches them. The inhuman point of view also makes each relatable human face we do get to spend time with feel that much more special and significant. Helps to mark each one in our minds, like soot on the wooden wall of an old boat-turned hut. Proof that they lived then and there, so that through each of the wildly different and experimental stories this story will tell us, we, like Fushi, can remember and learn. Now, you might remember in the part of this video I told you to forget that Crunchyroll is today's sponsor. If you'd like to watch this series or read it, there are links to do both on Crunchyroll in the doobly-doo. And if you don't have Crunchyroll yet, you can sign up for a 14-day free trial to start doing either of those things by heading to crunchyroll.com/basement today. Let me know in the comments below who your favorite immortal character in anime or manga is and why. And while I've got you here, I implore you to check out my recent videos exploring the power of cartoon violence and asking how much anime is too much. Until next time, or at least until you click one of those, I'm Geoff Thew, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.